from the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between. This is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. If your son or daughter is serious about college athletics, call them at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athletes.
Here we go. It's a late night edition, or do we want to go with after dark? We'll just say it's Inside Texas, hashtag Texas High School Soccer After Dark. We're ready to go. A wild, long day in Georgetown. Rafa, how are you, buddy?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Are you awake over there, man?
Yeah, that's like I said. This is a late night edition. Great. Bark at the moon and talk about some soccer.
How bark at the moon. All right. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Awesome. So good stuff, man. I appreciate you not showing me up today with the long hair, showing off the long, the long hairdo and everything. So yeah, man. So that's awesome. I appreciate that. So crazy day. Yeah, we had the 5A kicked off today, so we'll look at that. 5A girls started off the day. Then we were treated to an absolute classic in the 4A girls final, which which was ultimately the matchup. I know I had been, and speaking with you, going back to probably maybe mid-February was the matchup that I was screaming for, and we got it. And I know a lot of people, as we started progressing closer and closer to the playoffs, and then as the playoffs started, more people started seeing it's like, hey, this is maybe a matchup that would be would set up for a classic. And sure enough, that's what it was. And we'll get into that today between Salina and Midlothian Heritage in the 4A girls final. And then the nightcaps, which we wrapped up the night with both the 5A boys semifinals, which just ended about, I think, 35 minutes ago. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at all of that today. But initial thoughts before we start diving into specific games.
Just it was a crazy day with 5 games played in one field. To squeeze in everything starting at 9:30 and then just finishing off at 10. So I think maybe the UIL really kind of made us think, hey, maybe we need to play it at 2 stadiums, the semifinals, so that way we'll be up too late. So we won't have the late edition for next year.
Yeah, that would be nice of them, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, late night, here we are, but hey, we said we talked about we're going to go ahead. We're going to cover these games every day, and we're going to do these recaps every night, with the exception of Saturday's championship day. We will not do a recap on that day. We will come back on Sunday, on Easter Sunday. It'll be a special edition where we will recap the 5A and 6A finals for both boys and girls, and just kind of a look back at the season that was as well. So on the UIL side, talk a little bit of TAPS, and then we'll get ready. We'll start looking forward to next season, to a special reclassification year, right? Realignment year, I should say. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff. So awesome. So let's dive in right away, right off the bat. So we started off the day 9:30 a.m. Our first 5A girls semifinal between Magnolia and Frisco Wakeland. Thoughts there?
Well, like I said, Bernie Champion knocked off the defending state champion Dripping Springs girls. So, I'm sure they're feeling pretty good going into this game because, when you knock off a state champion, you're gonna get that energy to tell, hey, we can beat anybody. That that added that thought mindset, and then the other game, like I said, with the other girls' game, the Magnolia and Frisco, your typical Dallas versus Houston area showdown, and bragging rights as far as for the metropolitan area. So that was going to be one of the intriguing games, going into the to this semifinal.
Yeah, and so we start off. We look at this one. This was the first. Again, we talked about it was the first match of the evening, and it was a relatively tight one. Magnolia, people were like, hey, they were, dare I say, the upstarts, the ones that were making a great run, and a squad that I had been big on, that I was hoping to see make this run. So it was great to see them there. Some people would say it's like, hey, was the moment either too much for them, or was it kind of a, hey, we're just happy to be here? And I don't think that was the case, because they showed up. Game was, so it was 1-0 at halftime, Frisco Wakeland, and 50 minutes in, it was a tight one. It was a tight one. It was Magnolia was hanging in there, playing tough, and then all of a sudden they get one goal. Wakeland gets their second goal, I should say, in the 50th minute, followed by another goal 1 minute, literally 1 minute later in the 51st minute. But with that second goal in the 50th minute, you kind of got the sense in reading the body language that was the one that broke the game open, if you will. So yeah, that second goal kind of just seemed to have really deflated a Magnolia squad that was playing tough, that was hanging in there, but was also playing an awful lot in their defensive third.
Yeah, and usually when you're playing there for a lot of time, unless you're Atletico de Madrid, you're gonna have some cracks, and you're gonna wear out, and or the other team's gonna figure out how to get around that, and you got to give it a Frisco Wakeland. I mean, for the girls, they, like I said, they've been there, they've done that, and they didn't, they weren't unfazed with a tight game, and they were able to get things together, and end up getting that second goal that really kind of, like you mentioned, broke the camel's back, and just took control and took it from there. So that comes with experience, and been having the tradition of making these type of runs each year, being in the state playoff, state tournament. So, and then especially with the coaching staff that's been there too, you already have, like I said, there's no room for panic. They've been there, done that, and I think that was the edge that they had over Magnolia for today.
Right. Yeah. And I think it was just, it was hard for, I mean, like you said, with Magnolia, it was just, you could tell they were putting forth great effort, but they were also having to put great forth effort just to try to get the ball out of their defensive third through the midfield and try to create something in their attacking third. But there was never really any true clear-cut scoring opportunities.
Yeah, and one of the things when that happens, you get frustrated. That's when you start making mistakes, and that's when if you're not able to impose your style, or run your offense, it's going to throw everything off, and they may not have the experience to kind of battle out of that, and and make those modifications during the game, just like what Wakeland did. That's going to spell doom for your team, and like I said, you saw the end result. Wakeland kind of poured it on towards in that second half. So, but I think Magnolia will look back on this and they say, hey, you know what, we made it, we learned from this, and if we can come back again next year, we know what we need to do, as far as to take control of games and so forth. So they're going to get they're going to gain valuable experience out of this.
Right. So yeah, congratulations to the Magnolia Bulldogs on a great season. They finish 24-2-2 on the season. So congrats to them. Frisco Wakeland will move on. They will advance to the 5A girls final, which is slated for 11 a.m. and they will be making an attempt to win their third state title. So best of luck to them. So in our second matchup, the other half of the 5A bracket was was trying to be determined. The 5A girls semifinal between Grapevine and Bernie Champion. Grapevine came in 21-2-1 on the year. Bernie Champion 23-3. And again, as we talked about last night, coming in with that, I don't know, just that kind of, I guess you could say, that massive weight lifted off their shoulders, but also with a lot of eyes on them after that huge win over the defending state champion and what clearly was looking unbeatable in Dripping Springs. What were your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think Grapevine knew going into this game that they had to play pretty much a perfect game in order to win this, and they knew that if they fell behind or kept this team around, it was it could come back to haunt them as far as losing the game. And then, like I said, that's what happened with Dripping Springs. And when you knock off a state champ, you're gonna have that confidence going into any game, say, hey, we can beat anybody. And that's, I think that was on the mindset of Grapevine going to this, and I'm sure they didn't take them lightly. And like I said, on the Bernie side, it's like, hey, we're ready to go. I think they said this could be, if this is our destiny, knocking out the state champion, we may not, go in and get into the final and win it all, And it takes that one game to really open the doors for you. So this is, like I said, another intriguing matchup. But I think Grapevine was the one was being very cautious of this, as far as like, hey, we can't take this team lightly. We need to take care of business. If not, we're going to end up in the same boat like Dripping Springs.
Yeah, so and of course, if they didn't already have their attention, then Bernie Champion definitely had their attention when they took the lead about 13, 14 minutes in with the first goal. So Champion takes the lead 1-0, and then Grapevine responds later in that half with 2 goals of their own in a span of 3 minutes, both with 13 minutes, I believe it was 13 minutes remaining and 10 minutes remaining in that first half. And the odd thing, if you will, about those 2 goals were they came off of some super long throw-ins. So shout out to a couple of Grapevine's their throw-in specialists, because they were heaving that ball. I mean, we saw it multiple times. There was another opportunity that came right before the half as well, but they were set up. The 2 goals were set up by these incredible heaves of throw-ins that were about 25, 30 yards apart. So that was clearly an indication that somehow it had it threw Bernie Champion for a loop a little bit in terms of trying to adjust to defend that. And they did adjust to that ultimately, but I think they just got caught with just 2 perfect throw-ins. And you could tell that the Grapevine players on the receiving end of that, they were obviously used to their teammates having that capability to heave that ball as far as they did. So they win. All of a sudden, Champion's momentum is gone, and they go into the half down with Grapevine leading 2-1 at the half. Second half, Grapevine comes out and they add to those 2 goals with 3 more in a span of 5 minutes, and they rattle off 5 unanswered goals. Next thing you know, the score is 5-1.
Yeah, and and that happened, like I said, yesterday with a couple other games yesterday. You're thinking, okay, we're still in it at the half, and then, like I said, they must have found something in the Bernie, to get around Bernie's defense, because, like I said, Bernie's defense has been stingy all year, and they figured them out. Like I said, they hurt them with the throw-ins, and like I said, hey, let's hurt them with something. They must have found something to be able to exploit during those first 40 minutes, and to score those goals in that little window, really shows what that coaching staff was going in very prepared, into that. And then, once like for Bernie, once that happened, it was basically, kind of like quicksand. Couldn't really get out of that, because,
right.
They didn't know how to make that adjustment to stop that. And that happens in games too. You end up getting, to sound bad, but you end up getting routed. But goals will fall into bunches, And we saw that yesterday. Same thing with the Bernie boys doing that to Stafford. Stafford probably felt good. Yeah, hey, we're close. We're in the game, and all of a sudden it's out of reach.
Yeah, so then Champion responds with a goal with about I want to say it was about a 30-yard free kick. Gets one back to make it 5-2, and then within 2 minutes, Grapevine comes right back, bags another to make it 6-2, and then Champion responds, gets another one late to make it 6-3, and so yeah, it was a wide open game, and you could just tell that it was Grapevine was just being able to pick their spots a little bit better. Grapevine was able to create more separation on the wings. All right, they were able to separate themselves a little bit more and play those danger balls and find players that were free making those runs towards goal. So yeah, so you final score ended up being 6-3. Grapevine advances. And the interesting thing was it came from that trio for Grapevine. It came from that trio of their scorers, right? And Sam Larson, Caston Merrill, and Teresa McCullough, they all finished with 2 goals apiece, along with, I want to say, I think it was 4 or 5 different players with assists as well. So very well executed game plan by the Grapevine Mustangs. So the Grapevine Mustangs, they will advance to face Frisco Wakeland in Saturday's 5A girls final, which this match is slated for 11 a.m. It's the first match of the day there at Birkelbach. Congratulations to the Bernie Champion Chargers on a great season. They finished the year 24-3, and I mean, what can you say? Making a run to the state tournament, and knocking off Goliath, if you will, and in the process, and it's hard to gauge, right? I think Coach Walters obviously had them prepared, but was it just that much did it take that much of a toll on them to get past Dripping Springs?
Yeah, and usually, like I say, a game like that if you knock off a heavily favored team, just the adrenaline, the momentum, sometimes it doesn't continue on after that game and so forth. But you got to give them kudos. They fought back. And then it seemed, like I said, during their district, it didn't seem that all kind of gelled up together. But they got it together. Even though they finished second in their district, but they just fought and fought and fought, and when they finally got the third opportunity to get down with Dripping Springs, they took care of business. But like I said, they just ran into a team that had a 3-headed monster up front. That
right.
Was then it's tough to stop a team that has balanced scoring. You can't key on just one, because if you key on one, the other one's going to hurt you and so forth. So but kudos to Grapevine. Like I said, now they have an opportunity to win it, but it's going to be a Metroplex final, and it's going to be tough because they're going to have to face a team that's had the more of a tradition, even though the school's a lot younger than Grapevine.
Right.
That's been there a little bit more.
Yeah, it'll be two teams that are definitely familiar with each other. So it should make for a great final. Once again, congrats to Bernie Champion Chargers as well, and Coach Walters on a great season. So that'll be the 5A girls final, again, 11 a.m. on Saturday, April 16th. Frisco Wakeland Wolverines versus the Grapevine Mustangs, and that will be the first match of the 4 5A and 6A finals slated for Saturday there at Birkelbach. So, all right, so we move on to game 3 of the day, the main event, even though it was kind of sandwiched right in the middle, right? We're going to call it the main event here, the 4A girls final between Salina and Midlothian Heritage. Initial thoughts going into this one?
This is the one everyone was expecting. It was like your Thrilla in Manila right here. I mean, you have your two big giants. I mean, they've been consistent. Like I said, one's been the state champ. Is their state champ. The other one, didn't get the job done last year, but they were on a mission. They wanted to show, hey, we're here. we're going to establish ourselves as a dominant power in 4A girls soccer. But like I said, they had the challenges. Can you knock off the defending champ? And what a game, today that they had. And shame that the next game was not the last game. And it should have been the last game. To me, should have been the last game. And imagine it was the last game and having a nightcap with that game. Who, probably the PKs would have been just finished a few minutes ago and so forth. So
yeah. Going into this one, I know I spoke and in speaking with some coaches earlier in the day today. Excuse me. I know I told them this match has the potential to be the match of the entire weekend, right? Of the entire week of championship week, and boy, did it not disappoint. We got an all-timer here. I think who I was telling you about the Star Telegram reporter. He covers soccer, Brian Gossett, who he put it, I know in one of his posts on Twitter that he mentioned that, hey, I've covered a lot of soccer games and this is one of the absolute best I've ever seen. And he just said they delivered one for the ages. And that's exactly what I would call it. I'd call it, it was just an all-time great match, a classic, instant classic, whatever you want to call it. But it was that it exceeded the hype. And it was the one that we were talking about yesterday, right? That we said it's like would not, obviously, that more than not shock us, but we anticipated that this was going to probably be one of those that ends up going to penalties. And sure enough, how it happened was the dramatic part, right? Because you have Salina strikes first, they take the lead, and they go into the half. Up 2-1, and that is territory that Midlothian Heritage is not used to being in, right? So, and then it turned into this. As the match unfolded, it turned into the Taylor Zadrewski and the Jules Burrows show for both Salina and Midlothian Heritage, respectively, because they were putting on a show, right? This was even though the game finished 4-4 going into penalties after regulation and overtime. The defenses were having to put in a lot of work against two great players that were shining on the big stage, and Taylor Zadrewski and Jules Burrows for both teams. Both finished with 2 goals apiece. And then shout out, Taylor Zadrewski ends up being named the state final MVP. But so how it plays out from there, it kind of goes back and forth. We see Salina with the lead 3-2 late in the match. And then late in the match with, I think it was about 4 minutes left, if I'm not mistaken, Midlothian Heritage, Jules Burrows wins a penalty, and they're able to convert. They don't initially convert, but they're able to finish on the putback to make the game, to send the game in overtime, 3-3 at that point. And now you can kind of sense it that maybe Salina had let it get away, right? Like momentum maybe is now clearly shifted in the direction of Midlothian Heritage. And then that's kind of exactly what ended up happening, where we see what you immediately see in that first overtime is another penalty is awarded to Midlothian Heritage that's called on Salina, and they're able to convert on that. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, for the first time in the game, late in the first overtime, Midlothian Heritage has the lead.
Yeah, and like I said, it was like I said, it was like a heavyweight fight. I hit you, you hit me back, and it was, I do this, you do that, and what, you got to give it to Salina to to lose. I can say, to have the lead and then lose it, get it tied at the regulation, and then to be behind, in the overtime, a lot of teams will fall apart. They can't recover, but some way, somehow they found a way to get that fourth goal to tie it up, to send it to overtime. I mean, to penalty kicks, and I think they were very confident in their goalkeeper that, because she could stop, because she had been doing really well. She's one of being a freshman, being one of the top keepers. Right. They had confidence going in that, hey, we can win this in PKs, and because like I said, they're a very offensive team. They're a more offensive team than Heritage, and they felt, okay, well, we probably have the better PK kickers, and they do. And I think what maybe hurt also, Heritage is because they did PKs. They scored those 2 PKs. Their keeper already kind of figured them out.
Timing and preparation. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, very good point. So Midlothian Heritage takes the lead 4-3, and then Salina responds on a great play, great pass from Zadrewski to Buchanan to put it away. And turns out, Midlothian Heritage had the lead for I think all of about 6 to 8 minutes. Next thing you know, so we find ourselves tied late in the second overtime, and we're going to penalties. And what ultimately ended up being the difference in that first or in that shootout, I should say, was the first save being made by the Salina goalkeeper and Caitlin Gustafson. So that was ultimately the difference. She gets that initial save. Now all that pressure is squarely on Midlothian Heritage, and there is something to be said that Midlothian Heritage. We don't want to speculate. We weren't sure if it was an injury or what was going on, but their starting goalkeeper, their stud goalkeeper, and Taylor and Sorensen, she was not in the match for the penalties. So not quite sure. We can't speculate if it was an injury related, but going into those overtimes as well, one of their key defenders, right, their key center backs in Paisley Mabra for Midlothian Heritage was also out for the match after being, she was struck by a ball in the face, and so Midlothian Heritage they were doing it everything they could to keep everything together because, and as you would expect, a state champion, they were hanging in there, they were holding their own, and so a number of factors were unfolding as we went into overtime initially, and then when the penalty shootout occurred.
And like I said, losing those 2 players really, I think, probably was the difference because, when you went in with, they have a backup keeper that's just a freshman, and maybe that, didn't have that much experience as far as game time, and also, that. Normally, when you do go to a shootout, you're not going to put your backup keeper unless they're your goalkeeping specialist. Then you put them in. But yeah, and I'm sure she was real nervous about this. Going in, and it's a tall task. So can you stop shots? Out of the 5 shots, how many can you stop? And I think also losing, your key defender, if she had stayed in the game, they could have probably ended up holding on to that lead into overtime and won by a goal. So, and,
right.
Hopefully she's all right. Usually if she take a shot in the face, she may have gotten a concussion and she couldn't because of concussion protocol, we don't want to send players back in. So those 2 keys were pretty much, I'm not saying doom Heritage, but it kind of reduced their chances to repeat as champions.
Right. If you're Coach Slav there and you're just it's obviously it's already heightened. You're playing in a state final, and then you're having all this adversity thrown at you in the moment, right, in the heat of the moment. So shout out to that. They congratulations to Midlothian Heritage on an outstanding season. They defended their title well. They definitely did, and they gave us an incredible performance even in a losing they went down, but they went down fighting, and also so nothing, they should hold their heads up high. They gave an outstanding performance. They gave it took Salina everything they had to come out on top on this one, and again, Paisley Mabra, who's I know also a big supporter of the podcast, and a big listener of ours. We hope you're getting well. We hope everything's okay. I know you did mention that you'd be just fine. So we hope you're resting and recovering, and hope all is well. But congratulations to Midlothian Heritage on a great season. They finished the season 21-4-3, and congratulations to the Salina Bobcats. They finished the season 28-1-1, and they are your 2022 4A girls state champion. Congratulations. So we move on to game was game 4 of the day, the first one in the evening, the of the 5A boys semifinal between the Dripping Springs Tigers and the Katy Jordan Warriors. Thoughts going into this one? Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, well, you had a team that that did well here in Region 4, which is Dripping Springs Boys. They had a great season. They won a district title, and they knocked off a really good, and that was probably one of the favorites to maybe make state. Brownsville Porter, and they, like I said, they took care of business there, and you know they're coming into a little bit more experience than Katy Jordan, because Katy Jordan is a first year program, like a new program. Just opened the school recently, and so it was a battle of experience with youth, and where we're gonna, what was gonna tip the scale on there was the youthful team that's on a mission to win. Going to overtake a team that's been experienced the last year. Because Dripping Springs Boys last year, they were just as good too. They just fell a little short, but we weren't sure how this was going to turn out, but it was a great game too. And I know it's a little one-sided one as far as the shooting, but you got to give it to goes to Katy Taylor. They held their. I mean, Katy Jordan, they really held their own.
Yeah, and so this was the opposite, the opposite of what we had in the girls 4A final, right? Where that one was fireworks, 8 goals plus plus penalties. This one was a true defensive battle. Teams had opportunities, obviously, but a true defensive battle. And Dripping Springs, Adam Knutson is able to capitalize and put away what ended up being the game-winning goal in the 71st minute. So here you are now, 9 minutes remaining, and now Katy Jordan's trying to make something happen. And they have, in the last 5 minutes, they had two great opportunities, and one hit the post. Unfortunate, unlucky, right? And then the other one ends up being Dripping Springs goalkeeper Jackson Swanson's what was on his only save of the match, right? As he came out on a breakaway, gets big, and makes basically what was a game clinching save. So shout out to Jackson Swanson, but that one save was critical. It came inside of the last, I believe it was the last 2 minutes, and and that was the difference, as Dripping Springs wins it 1-0 over the Katy Jordan Warriors. Special shout out, we love goalkeepers here, right? We talk about it all the time. It's like we love goalkeepers here, and a special shout out to Katy Jordan goalkeeper and Elijah Bencourt with an incredible performance, and had seven saves, some of them that were just absolutely incredible saves, and did his part in being able to give his team the opportunity to not only stay in the game but tie it late in the game. So just like you said, Katy Jordan, new on the new kid on the block, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know they are only going to get better. So they finished the season 18-7-2. So congratulations, I should say, to the Katy Jordan Warriors on a great season and in making the state tournament. And now Dripping Springs advances to Saturday's 5A boys final, which is slated for approximately 1:30 p.m. there at Birkelbach. And they will face the winner of our next match here that we are going to talk about. And we talk about the final match of the evening here between team that I know a lot of people were rooting for. A lot of people, they were maybe the last feel-good story, right, of the tournament in Fort Worth Trimble Tech, representing Fort Worth ISD, as they came in 23-3-3 on the season versus the perennial power, the one who has really owned 5A for probably the last 6 years in the Frisco Wakeland Wolverines at 22-4-1. So going into this one, what were your thoughts?
Well, Frisco Wakeland had a really crazy season because they didn't win their district title, and and a lot of people kind of were trying to already write them off, especially because they lost to Lone Star twice, and They're like, when they face them in the final again, they're like, well, this is probably going to be it. And I think they found a way to win because they have that experience. Like I said, they created a dynasty. They've gotten them. This is their sixth straight appearance in state, and you know that just shows you the tradition, the coaching staff. They know how to get around a lot of these things, and so going into this game, they were the favorite, but then in the back of the mind, I said you have this Trimble Tech team that, like I said, really nobody knew about or talked about, and Fort Worth ISD is not really known for their soccer, even though they did have a state finalist last year, Diamond Hill Jarvis, which kind of opened the door for Fort Worth ISD, because when I read an article about how a lot of their teams have gone to the second round, but they've gone two teams now into to the state tournament. So
Right.
it was like I said, it was like an underdog versus your perennial powerhouse. What was going to happen in this game? Was Trimble Trek going to pull probably the biggest upset? And just as big as the one with the Running Girls with Dripping Springs, or is Wakeland gonna? All right, we're gonna take care of business and get into the final again to defend our title.
Yeah, and so this one played out pretty interesting. Wakeland takes the lead 1-0, takes the initial lead, gets the first goal, takes the lead 1-0 in the 5th minute. And I know the initial thought it was like, okay, here we go. It's gonna be a long day, right, or a long night, and the perennial power is gonna run away from the Fort Worth ISD team. But no, Trimble Tech, brought the intensity. They were more than just hanging in there defensively. They created, they had their first good look, I think, about maybe 12 minutes in, another really, really great opportunity about 15 minutes in. So you knew that they were going to be able to generate some scoring opportunities, some scoring chances, to the point where Wakeland was going to have to they were going to have to be on it. They were going to have to stay honest, right, and respect their counter capability. And because they could score quickly, they could get up the field quickly. So, and then 3 minutes before halftime, Daniel Gutierrez breaks through, gets that goal for Trimble Tech. We go into the half tied at 1. What do you think there is happening? The coaches, because you got one team that's never really been there before, and then you got one team that is maybe considered not their prototypical top level team, but they've been there plenty of times in terms of culture. What do you think's going through their minds? What do you think coaches are saying at that point at halftime, tied 1-1?
I think Trimble Tech felt really good about this, because when you normally, like you mentioned, you give up a goal early, you're probably thinking, oh, this is going to be a long one. We're going to end up getting routed, but it didn't phase them, and they came back, fought back, got the equalizer. And they probably, like I said, they felt like, hey, here's an opportunity for us. No one gives us a chance. If we can get the lead, and who knows, maybe that affect Wakeland's psyche. Start putting down on them, and we can pull one of the biggest upsets. And Wakeland, like I said, I'm sure they like, hey, we better get it going. We better get it together, because this team can beat us. They equalize, and they have the talent. If we don't do something, we're gonna end up going home a little bit early. So,
right.
Those were the scenarios. And like I said, Wakeland kind of played it with their back on the corner, but like I said, they were able to find a way and get that second goal, and then the third goal that was off the PK, and like I said, that pretty much sealed the deal, for them. And like I said, Trimble Tech just wasn't able to get anything, get anything in that second half. I think had they taken the lead, I think they probably would have ended up winning that game, because I think Wakeland would have, I think, really hit the panic button, and that would have elevated Trimble Tech a little more to probably, maybe the score would have been the other way around, maybe 3-1 Trimble Tech, had they scored that second one. So,
Right.
But I guess kudos to Wakeland, because that experience helped them, and you say, hey, we've been in these situations before. I'm sure they've been in tied or down in the half in other games in the past 6 years, and they didn't panic, and they just went on their business and were able to get those 2 goals, and now they're in the final again.
Yeah, no doubt. And there is something to be said for that, right? When we talk about it so much here on the show in terms of pedigree, culture, right? Having been there before, recognizing the moment. Again, this, just as you said, this is a Frisco Wakeland squad that didn't win their district, and yet here they are. They're 80 minutes away from winning another state title, right? So, so 1-1 coming out of the second half. Ryan Greener from Lakeland is able to score one with about 10 minutes left off of a build-up, kind of off of a in transition. Puts it away, 10 minutes left, and you kind of get the sense like, okay, this might have been enough to seal it, even though Trimble Tech is still pushing, right? They're trying to push, trying to make something happen, obviously. And then penalty is called, and Brennan Bezdek is able to get his second one of the day. He converts the penalty, and finishes with two goals on the day for the Wolverines, and that seals it. Final score being Frisco Wakeland 3, Fort Worth Trimble Tech 1. So congratulations to the Bulldogs, Fort Worth Trimble Tech. They finished the season 23-4-3. Just tremendous effort, and just as you said, it's great to see another Fort Worth ISD team break through, make the state tournament, and they're knocking on the door. Now you're starting to see it again. So would I be shocked if we see it again next year? No. And just like Diamond Hill Jarvis last year, who ultimately ended up falling in the state final to an incredibly talented, what could be one of the most talented, one of the most dominant teams we've seen in the Bernie Boys, who could seal their destiny possibly tomorrow. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know there was like a comment made. I know with Brian, like I said, we're talking about the game. There was a comment sent to him about how far away this team, Trimble Trek, really represented well. And just like I said, there was a comment, I think I was quoting from Twitter, like said, and like I mentioned, they mentioned about the last 2 years, they've had the 5A teams in Fort SD have made it to the second round with 2 finalists. This is like I said, he mentioned, like, this is not a major select club team. A lot of these kids that are not playing in the club soccer level, and for them to make it this far, because we know Wakeland is probably a heavily dominated club soccer team, because their high school's right across from Toyota Field. Most of them are probably playing for FC Dallas, and Fort Worth ISD. Those kids may not have those opportunities to be playing at that high level during the off season, but that just shows them how they went through that gauntlet for that Region 1 just to get to this point. And hopefully, like I said, this is just the beginning for that district to really start sending more teams deeper into the playoffs and so forth. And I know with the USL moving to Fort Worth next year, hopefully that'll help those kids there, getting opportunities to play higher level competition and so forth. So, like I said, just kudos. Like I said, that comment I read there on Twitter said kudos. I think it was Cesar Espinosa mentioned that, but
awesome.
It's kudos to like I said, to Trimble Tech, and like I said, we haven't seen the last of them. I think they've built the foundation. Hopefully, they'll move forward and able to do some good things.
Yeah. So that wraps up our that was our last match of the day, and congratulations again to Frisco Wakeland Wolverines, who are now, they advanced to the 5A boys state final versus the Dripping Springs Tigers, which is slated for 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, April 16th. Again, they're at Birkelbach. So before we look at tomorrow, Coach, really quick, just thoughts on these two 5A matchups for the girls and the boys that we're going to see on Saturday. First, the Frisco Wakeland versus, for the girls, Frisco Wakeland versus Grapevine.
This is your typical Metroplex final. I mean, lots of experience, lots of talent. They've both been there. They've been the staple for 5A girls soccer the last few years. Who's gonna? I think it comes down to who wants it more. You just can't be. Like I said, these programs are just not satisfied being here. They're all built around winning state championships. And that's the attitude they have, and it's a state championship or bust. Either you're first. It's like Ricky Bobby, either first or you're last, and that's the attitude that these programs have. And
I've
but
had way too many Ricky Bobby quotes thrown at me this week, man. I gotta say. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I think this, these are two teams that know each other pretty well, and also just on the club side, probably club teammates or they're
mm,
familiar with each other playing against each other on the club side as well. So I think this has all the makings of a heavyweight slugfest. And yeah, I mean, just depends. Grapevine, we've been talking about them all year. And shout out to their booster club. That's another booster club that does just phenomenal stuff with promoting them, advocating for them, and giving great, just marketing them and advocating for them on social media and just giving great updates. So, but Grapevine's been dangerous like all year, and as we saw today versus Bernie Champion, is once they kind of get on a roll, it's like going downhill with no brakes. They can be scary. They can be scary, and and how they can score on you too. I mean, how do you? It's a lot tougher as a coach to prepare for throw-ins. you
yeah,
know?
that's what I mentioned. Like, what is Wakeland going to do to defend that?
Yeah,
And how can you defend that? Because it seems like Grapevine, that's one of their fortes as far as generating offenses, and that caught Bernie off guard. I'm sure they didn't see that in their scouting report. I'm sure Wakeland watched the game and like, I know we got to make sure that we defend this or not allow throw-ins near our area. It's like with
right.
cases with corner kicks.
Right.
If the teams are good at set pieces, you're not going to allow them to. You're going to make sure you don't give them set pieces there that can be in danger of scoring on you. So
Yeah.
I think that could come in as a difference into this game. You know, you know, as far as maybe getting one in, it's going to be a tight game. This could be another classic like Salina and Midlothian Heritage, because these are two heavyweights. It's just the same now, but we're just in the 5A level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then our final thoughts on our other 5A boys finals slated for 1:30 on Saturday versus Dripping Springs and also Frisco Wakeland. What are your thoughts there?
Wakeland's probably going to be going in as the favorite, but the Dripping Spring boys, I think they need to take a page of what the girls did last year, because last year the girls, they knocked off some pretty good teams to get to win the final, and I think this year it's kind of like a little mirror image of
Yeah.
that run last year, but this time for the boys. And they had a tough one. Katie Jordan gave them everything they got, but they were able to squeak by in. And I think Trimble Trek showed Wakeland's not invincible.
Right.
They can be hurt. And they can be scored on. And I think maybe Dripping Springs maybe have a little more talent than Trimble Tech, because and maybe that could be the difference to finally knock off that dynasty. In knocking them off on the state title and claiming theirs before they move up to 6A.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. It'll be a great one for sure. It'll be we should be in store for some great finals on Saturday. So, all right, we start looking ahead to tomorrow. So tomorrow the big boys join the party, right? As 6A finally arrives, they'll start the day. So again, these games are slated to start at 9:30, noon, 2:30, 5, and 7:30 p.m. All subject to change, obviously, based upon the moment any of these goes into overtime and or penalties. So starting off the day tomorrow, 9:30 a.m., the first 6A girls semifinal, we have Fort Bend Ridgepoint versus Rockwall. At noon, slated for noon, the second girls 6A semifinal between South Lake Carroll and Austin Westlake. That should also be a dandy. And then we shift gears there in between 6A, and we have the 4A boys final, where Bernie, who's looking to make a claim as the new dynasty that has arrived, right? The Bernie boys, Bernie Greyhounds, will take on the other Salina, right? Salina looking to do the double as well. And that one is slated for 2:30. Again, that is the 4A boys final. And then after that, we'll shift to the two evening matches. With the 6A boys, first 6A boys semifinal slated for 5 p.m. between the Woodlands versus the Lake Travis Cavaliers. Lake Travis, a team we've seen pretty often this year. And then the final match of the evening, the nightcap, in the final 6A boys semifinal between Katy Seven Lakes and Plano. So staple team there in Plano. But thoughts, anything you're looking forward to in terms of tomorrow's matches?
Yeah, I'm looking to see that Bernie Solana game. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
you know that's going to be a great. I think that's been a year in the making, and I'm sure Solana wants to be a staple in the boys 4A soccer. But I think Bernie have something to say about that. It's like I don't think they're ready to relinquish that crown, and like I said, they've been there, and Solana has it, so this is new to them, and it'll be a close game. But I think, like I said, I think don't be surprised if Bernie ends up repeating again, because I think they just have that little it factor, because like I said, we've been there, done that, we know what to expect, and this is new to them. So and like I said, that moment they can get caught up in that moment, and might be a little bit too heavy on their shoulders. So that should be a great game. And another one that's interesting is that South Lake Carroll Austin Westlake game.
Yeah,
That's gonna be another heavyweight fight. They're basically mirror images of each other as far as team, talent wise. But
right.
who's gonna be the better one, and as far as flexing their authority, I think whoever really dominates, as far as dominates the game, but takes control their style of play, they're gonna end up winning the game. And like I said, but then you have another team on the other side, like Cedar Ridge. Yeah. Oh, Ridge Point. Sorry about that. Ridge Point. Yeah, they're the only undefeated team left in Texas. Can they finish it off and win these last two and be one of the very few to go undefeated? From start to finish. And I think they have it. They got their hands full with Rockwall. So that'll be, like I said, that's gonna be another game. And then Lake Travis. They've been, like I said, can they finish the job? They finally broke through, but they got to play a team that they beat once. But
it's a tricky one for them.
Yeah, and this Woodlands they're gonna want revenge, and they've probably been circling that game for them for a while, and this is gonna be a dogfight. And then the other game, Seven Lakes and Plano. I'm going to give that one a little edge to Plano, because I think they've played a little tougher route, because they had to beat some really good teams, and I guess not to put the but now in case on Katy Seven Lakes, because Katy Seven Lakes isn't a tough district too, but I think Plano's had to run through a tougher gauntlet. But that game's going to be a good one too, so, and it can go either way. But I'm going to give the edge a little bit on Plano on that one.
Yeah, I think we're in store for fireworks tomorrow for sure. I think, we start in that 4A boys final, Bernie, Salina, two teams that can score, and they can score a lot fast. So, but they're also two teams that defend really well. So something has to give, right? Something has to give in this game. You talk about pedigree, culture, and, Coach Strong, how in terms of the mentality, with Bernie, I give them the edge there. But like I said, it's like Salina's not just going to lay down, and just because Bernie's the defending state champion, they're still going to have to show up. And I know Coach Strong will have them ready with that. But I think that, you talk about that South Lake Carroll Austin Westlake matchup. South Lake Carroll has the firepower. They're led by one of their young stars, freshman Kennedy Fuller, who's also been called up with the U.S. Youth National Team, and an Austin Westlake team that has just quietly been taking care of business. And they got good. They went from good to really good at the right time, right? They started peaking at the right time. So that should make for a great matchup. And then Ridge Point, you talk about Ridge Point in that Houston Dallas matchup with Rockwall, where I don't think there's a team in 6A that, probably boys or girls for that matter, that probably has a bigger chip on their shoulder from last year to this year than maybe Ridgepoint after being bounced in the playoffs so early last season when you were one of the favorites. So they still have a lot to prove. They're not done yet as well. So a lot of intriguing matchups. And then we talk about Lake Travis's, and that's the question, right? It's like, can they finish it now? Can they finish it? They got a tricky matchup tomorrow versus the Woodlands, and a team that they've already seen, and a team that they know is going to be a lot better than they saw them back on January 13th. So it'll be a different story as well. So some phenomenal matchups in store tomorrow. So again, that'll be 5 games tomorrow. 6A girls semifinals start off the day at 9:30 and noon. Approximately 2:30 is the 4A boys final, and then the other pair of 6A semifinals for the boys in the evening. So it'll be a great one, and we'll be here to join you after about 30 minutes or so after the last match of the evening. So great stuff. Great stuff again, Rafa. Final thoughts?
Just like I said, looking forward tomorrow. Like I said, there's some great, excellent games, and we'll have we'll find out who will be our 4A state champs for the boys, and we'll find out who plays the last few games for the season with the 5A, the 5A boys and girls, and the 5A and the 6A boys and girls. So, like I said, Saturday we'll have the very last 4 games of the soccer season, wrapping things up since we started back in early November. Oh, actually November. Early December. For the season. So this has been a long one, but it's been exciting. It's been, like I said, we've seen a lot of surprises and a lot of some disappointments.
Yeah.
But that's what soccer is all about. You see it in the pros and you see it in college, but it's just what you live for.
Yeah. I don't think we're done seeing the surprises yet by any means either. So buckle up, because we still got another 2 days to go. So this has been awesome. Thank you again for our listeners, our supporters. Continue to DM us, continue to message us, continue to listen. Again, you can also listen to the audio podcast version on all major platforms. Give us a rating. We'd appreciate it. That helps bump us up as well. And for many of our listeners that have already done that have been doing that, thank you so much for all the great pub, all the great love. We appreciate that. Somehow, some way, we're being listened to in 11 countries. Don't ask me how that happened, but it sounds cool, so I like to share that. So you're the reason why we do it. Thank you. And again, congratulations to all of today's winners. Congratulations in crowning a new state champion today in the 4A girls Salina Bobcats, as well as to the runner-up in Midlothian Heritage Jaguars. And again, all our teams that whose season also ended today, that's the thing. This is the tournament of champions, right? You have to be a regional. You're already a champion and a regional champion to arrive here. So some great performances today. So looking forward to it. We'll come back. We'll see you again in about 24 hours time. So for Rafa, again, thank you for everything. For our listeners, our supporters, you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading.
You've been listening to the 50/50 podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 50_50pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time.